as if it's not busy enough in politics, it's going to get busier. Globally, more voters than ever will head to the polls, or so the politicians hope.
Yes, not only has the Prime Minister told GB News that we're to expect a general election this year, but there is also the 60th US presidential election in November. At least we know the month of that one. Helps with a bit of the planning, because Rishi Sunak's keeping us on our toes.
Yeah, it's going to be full of drama, amazing spectacle. Former American President Donald Trump widely tipped to win the Republican nomination, despite these ongoing legal cases that you're reading about.
And despite 2 states blocking him from its presidential primary ballot. So that in itself will be a historic achievement if he manages to do it. Let's speak to the political commentator Andy Williams, who joins us now for analysis and all of this. And I suppose, you know, GB News, I want to start with the UK. Yeah. When do we think this election's going to be? I mean, Labour clearly want it the sooner the better because they're polling really well. But there is an argument from the right as well that actually if you were to go before the local elections in May, perhaps that would be a good idea.
There is. I mean, my money's on October or November.
Okay.
I think if you're Rishi Sunak, your incentive is to cling on for as long as possible and hope something comes up, something huge that changes the political weather, because they're so far behind. It's not going to be tinkering at the edges that gets the Tories from the position they're in now to another term in office. So I think you're probably looking at November, but as you say, there is an argument for May. Firstly, maybe you catch Labour unawares. Now Labour are going out and saying, we're ready, we want the election now, but perhaps the machine's not as ready as they might like to be. Obviously, inflation's coming down a bit more quickly. The small vote numbers are dropping slightly. And if you go in May, you do it before the summer when those small vote numbers will rise again.
Exactly, and we've made those tax cuts.
They're not tarred with that brush of mass wipeout, which will probably happen at the council elections. It's interesting, Andy, that people see a general election differently than a local election. They
do, completely different contexts, and actually I think it's almost in the Tories' interests to disassociate those 2 dates and go a bit later. As I say, there's something really bold that totally changes the way people are looking at Keir Starmer and Rishi Sunak needs to happen.
But here's the thing, mate, that amazes me. You've got 2 boring men, really, really dull, boring men, both of them leading these parties. And you think, well, surely we, the voters, surely those parties deserve better representation. Yet, with the lacklustre leaders, there's still who do you see as being the favourite there? I mean, you can't look at either Sunak and Starmer and say charisma.
Well, here's another way of looking at it: is do voters actually want excitement in their politicians? We've had so much excitement from people like Boris Johnson,
didn't we?
We tried charisma in inverted commas. We tried Boris Johnson. We tried someone a bit left field in Liz Truss, and I don't think people were too happy with those outcomes. I agree, it's not very exciting. It's a bit staged.
Okay. Well, let's apply that theory to the American elections then. If people have tried charisma, but boring is actually a safer bet, when you've got Biden versus Trump, by that measure, you see Biden being re-elected possibly in America.
I wouldn't be so sure about that. I mean, I'm really concerned that Trump has a significant chance of winning this election. He looks almost unstoppable as the nominee, which is incredible.
Except he also looks very likely to be convicted. But he's
up against a man who just looks senile.
But he could be elected and be in prison.
It's possible. I mean, I think the problem, Eamon, as you sort of touched on there, is that Joe Biden's age is the big factor in this election. Now, you would think with Donald Trump's record in office, with all of the criminal cases that are going on, that would be the elephant in the room. Actually, it's Biden's age. It's the fact that he is looking his age, 82. He'd be 86 at the end of another term.
Yeah, but their age isn't that different. I don't think it's the number.
No, but it's the behaviour.
It's his cognitive ability.
I mean, if that was Joe Biden, he would have fallen down those steps by now. There he is. We're just watching her. Which is he going to slip? Is he going to go? Oh, hold on to that rail. Oh, he's made it. Oh, he's down. Well, OK, good.
But if it isn't going to be Joe Biden, I mean, there is a possibility that people within the party now are saying, well, actually, we need to put someone else forward. That could happen in the summer. And let's not forget, the former Democrat, also causing the biggest upset for many, many years now, in the form of, and I forget his name,
Blinken,
Robert Kennedy.
No, Robert Kennedy, yeah.
As a third-party candidate, which could be significant and take votes away from Biden on the left. So that is a concern.
But also apparently on the right as well, because he's anti-lockdown and all of these. Yes, so the right have started to champion him as well. So he could have a bit of a impact on both sides.
Yeah, I think that's right. I think it's going to be if it is Biden versus Trump, which is obviously a rerun of 2020, it's going to be extremely close. It's going to come down to about 5 states, and actually about a city in each of those states. It's going to be that tight, so anything could happen. And we saw in the 2016 election, didn't we, that something happened 3 weeks before the election that probably turned the tide and changed the result.
I also read that Ron DeSantis has said if he gets the nomination, he would pardon Trump. So you could have a situation where Ron DeSantis potentially gets elected, pardons Trump, and then he comes in at a future date.
I think
who knows? It's fascinating, but if it wasn't also real, it would be quite entertaining.
But that's the whole thing. American politics is entertaining. British politics is not. And you know, we do this, but we try to impersonate American politics, and we don't do it very well. We're in that sort of in-between stage where we're trying to be more American in the TV debates and things, and people sort of get a bit touchy about it.
That's right. And actually, on the TV debates, it's interesting, there's reports coming out that Keir Starmer obviously wants to avoid those debates, because what does he have to gain from it? He's so far ahead in the polls. I mean, personally, I think he has to do that.
Well, that's what Trump does. You know, that is Trump's approach, isn't it? He doesn't do the debates because what's he got to gain from it?
Absolutely.
Interesting that Starmer could be taking tips from Trump on how to...
Well, and let's see how their relationship evolves
well,
as well.
exactly, because it could be very awkward. Listen, really fascinated to talk to you, Andy. It's going to be an interesting year.
Certainly is.
2024. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Indeed.
And Andy Williams, I can't thank you enough for making our Christmas. We had all your records on. They were just great. It was beginning to look a lot like Christmas was wearing out in our house.
Yeah, those royalties are going to roll in the next few weeks.
Roll in, OK. Good man. Thank you very much indeed.